Ibrahim Traoré, Africa's youngest revolutionary leader, the story of Burkina Faso's bold captain. Welcome to Real African History, the place where we uncover powerful stories that textbooks often leave behind. Today, we're diving deep into a modern story of revolution, courage, and a bold new chapter in West Africa's struggle for sovereignty. It's about a young captain, Ibrahim Traoré, Africa's youngest revolutionary leader, who rose from the dusty red soil of Burkina Faso to become the youngest leader in the world. So, grab a drink, settle in, and get ready, because what you're about to hear isn't just history. It's real African history, and it's time the world listened. In a time when Africa struggles under the weight of foreign influence, terrorism, and corruption, a young soldier rises. Not from wealth, not from privilege, but from the dusty red earth of Burkina Faso. His name? Ibrahim Traoré. At just 34 years old, he became the youngest leader in the world. But how did this quiet boy from a remote village become a symbol of resistance against neocolonialism in West Africa? This is the story of courage, betrayal, revolution, and a dream of an Africa that finally controls its own destiny. From the moment Ibrahim Traoré declared, Burkina Faso for Burkina, the world paused. Generals in Paris clenched their jaws. Jihadist cells prepared to test his mettle. And the people, millions of veterans, farmers, students, felt something shift deep in their hearts. Today, we'll journey through his entire arc. 1. Humble beginnings in Bondakui. 2. His transformation into a soldier. 3. The winds of revolution that swept him into power. 4. His early rule and bold promises. 5. The challenges that battered his government. 6. The pivotal break with France and alignment with Russia. 7. The myth and image of the man and what lies ahead. Sit back, relax, get comfortable, because this is the story of a captain who dared to challenge the old order, and in doing so, reignited the hope of an entire continent. Humble beginnings. Born on March 14, 1988, in a small village called Bondakui, in western Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré grew up in a modest family of subsistence farmers. His father, Abdoulaye Traoré, tended a small plot of militant sorghum. His mother, Fatoumata Traoré, raised chickens and cooked for neighbors to earn a few extra CFA francs. Bondakui was, and still is, one of those villages where the roads turned to dust with the first hint of the dry season. Schools often lacked books and even desks. The nearest well was a half-hour walk, and electricity flickered as a luxury. Mosquito nets protected families from malaria, but nothing could stop the uncertainty that hovered over everyday life. Yet young Ibrahim Traoré had something many others didn't: determination. As a boy, he walked 3 kilometers each way to attend secondary school in Didougou, carrying a battered backpack filled with worn notebooks and a second-hand pen. Despite the heat and hunger, he excelled. Teachers remembered him as studious and humble, someone who always arrived early, sat in the front row, and asked questions that went beyond the curriculum. In 2006, after finishing his baccalaureate, Ibrahim Traoré earned a rare scholarship to attend the University of Ouagadougou, nearly 300 kilometers away from Bondakui. He studied geology, fascinated by the very soil that fed his village. He dreamed of maps, minerals, and perhaps one day helping develop Burkina Faso's untapped resources: gold, manganese, and copper. But that dream would take a backseat when Burkina Faso's own soil needed someone to defend it. Because in those years, 2007, 2008, Burkina Faso was already feeling tremors of instability. Groups calling themselves Ansarul Islam and later splinter cells linked to Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, AQAM, began creeping south from Mali. Villagers whispered about roadblocks, beheadings, and forced conversions. Watching from Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré realized something had to change. Someone had to stand up, and he was willing to be that someone. The making of a soldier. In 2009, just after Ibrahim Traoré finished his geology degree, he made a life-changing decision. He left the lecture halls and joined the Burkina Army. He was 21 years old, tall and lean, with quiet eyes that seemed to take in everything. He impressed his instructors from day one. He trained as an anti-aircraft officer, learning to identify enemy aircraft and launch radar-guided missiles. Then, through a bilateral agreement, he was sent to Meknes, Morocco, for specialized artillery training. Over 6 months, Ibrahim Traoré mastered ballistics, communication protocols, and the discipline of a professional soldier. Upon returning to Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, then simply Lieutenant Ibrahim Traoré, volunteered for the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, MINUSMA. From late 2010 to early 2012, he served in the dusty outposts around Jao and Kidal, where Islamist militants roamed freely. There, he saw firsthand how jihadist groups laid landmines, burned schools, and forced villages into morality campaigns. In those UN weeks, Ibrahim Traoré earned praise for staying calm during ambushes, for organizing patrols that rescued hostages, and for forging local alliances with Dogon and Tuareg elders. By 2014, Ibrahim Traoré had returned to Burkina Faso with a hardened resolve. These threats were not somewhere else. They were on his doorstep, endangering his own people. By 2019, Ibrahim Traoré was deployed to the northern region of Burkina Faso, provinces like Sino, Soum, and Yaga, areas that had become jihadist strongholds. Under a brutal sun, he witnessed villages like Titao and Dibo attacked so many times that the walls of mud houses seemed to bleed dust. He saw mothers hiding babies while families snuck across borders to Niger or Mali, fearing they would be next. He felt the weight of every life lost due to poor equipment, government corruption, and lack of coordination. Soldiers scavenged for night vision goggles. Radio channels were overwhelmed. Command officers took bribes instead of delivering supplies. The young lieutenant often wrote reports to his superiors in Ouagadougou, begging for better trucks, more ammunition, and even basic medical kits. Those pleas fell on deaf ears. Burkina Faso's capital was far removed from the red earth where villages burned. And so, frustration grew, not only in Ibrahim Traoré's heart, but in the hearts of many young soldiers. It was no longer enough to march in parades or attend promotions. Something had to be done. The seed of revolution was planted. The winds of revolution. By January 2022, the tension in Burkina Faso had reached a breaking point. Months of reports had shown that over 1,200 civilians had died in attacks since 2019, and more than 1 million were displaced. Villages existed behind makeshift earth barriers. Schools had closed. Farmers couldn't plant crops because jihadists imposed taxes for every seed bag. On January 23, 2022, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, a fellow senior officer, led a coup that ousted President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore. Damiba cited Kabore's failure to protect citizens. When Damiba took power, many soldiers, especially young lieutenants like Ibrahim Traoré, felt a flicker of hope. They thought, maybe he will fix this. Damiba even promised to hold elections within 6 months. But as spring turned to summer, nothing improved. Villages in Sino province still lay in ruins. The north was still bleeding. International aid was trapped at border checkpoints. The military budget was siphoned off for lavish ceremonies in the capital instead of ammunition and armored vehicles. Ibrahim Traoré watched it all. He saw Damiba host banquets for top brass while troops slept in foxholes. He saw families in Fada and Guma beg for food. He saw the same old faces in positions of power, making speeches but delivering no results. So that fall, as the rains faded and the Harmattan wind blew dust across the Sahel, a group of dissatisfied junior officers began plotting in secret. Dressed in green military uniforms, they met under the cover of olive trees outside Ouagadougou. Their leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. He was known among them as the Thinker because of how meticulously he laid out the plan. On the night of September 29, 2022, at around 10 p.m., a battalion of elite paratroopers and gendarmes, many of whom Ibrahim Traoré had trained, sealed the gates to the presidential palace. Communication lines were cut. Television stations were occupied. Checkpoints closed all roads leading into Ouagadougou before dawn. By 4 a.m. on September 30th, word spread, Damiba is under arrest. When the sun rose, Ibrahim Traoré appeared on national television wearing his camouflage uniform. His voice was calm but resolute. Fellow Burkinab, we have taken control to save our nation. Those who betray our people must yield. We are here to restore security and dignity. In the streets, crowds erupted. They chanted in French, Vive Traoré, Vive l'espoir, meaning, long live Traoré, long live hope. For many, he was no longer just a soldier, he was a savior, a new beginning. Just days after the coup, on October 6, 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traoré was officially declared interim president by the newly formed Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, MPSR. He stood tall in front of the palace gates, flanked by soldiers and a handful of civilians who had joined the movement. In his first public address, he spoke with conviction. We will reclaim our territory. We will take back our land from terrorists. And we will stand independent, politically, economically, and militarily. Burkina Faso for Burkinab. His first action was to create rapid intervention battalions, BIS, specialized units combining airborne troops, gendarmes, and local militia volunteers. These forces were to be trained intensively in counterinsurgency tactics, intelligence gathering, and community liaison. They set up bases in strategic towns like Dibo, Dori, and Fada Ngoma. To push his message to the rural areas, Ibrahim Traoré sent convoys carrying food, medicine, and pamphlets promising security in exchange for solidarity. He called on village elders to form community self-defense groups, known locally as Volontés pour la Défense de la Patrie. He believed that by arming and training villagers, farmers, teachers, even local sheikhs, his forces could better defend remote areas than foreign troops or distant generals in Ouagadougou. At the same time, he tried to unify the fractured bureaucracy. He replaced dozens of governors, generals, and prefects with new appointees who pledged loyalty to the MPSR. He dissolved the National Assembly and suspended the constitution until free and fair elections could be arranged. These words, free and fair elections, echoed across radio waves, giving hope to those tired of military rule. But ruling a country torn by war is never easy. Deep divisions existed even within his own camp. Hardliners demanded an immediate total war, while moderates cautioned that overreach could provoke a full-blown civil conflict. As Sudan to the east and Mali to the north demonstrated, Sahelian coups often led to prolonged turmoil. Yet for now, Ibrahim Traoré's popularity soared. Everywhere in Ouagadougou, murals appeared of a young man in military uniforms, pointing forward. Street vendors sold T-shirts, Traoré 2023, UN Nouveau Départ. And farmers in the north, hearing that soldiers now shared their own scarce grain supplies, whispered in gratitude. The stage was set for a new chapter. Challenges and controversies. Despite initial optimism, Captain Traoré's presidency quickly ran into fierce challenges. 1. Jihadist control. By October 2022, jihadist groups controlled over 50% of Burkina Faso's territory, especially in the tri-border areas around Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Towns like Gorom Gorom and Nuna were under constant attack. Villages often ran out of food and water because traders feared ambush. Ibrahim Traoré's rapid intervention battalions attempted to retake a few strategic towns, like Tinakov, but progress was slow. 2. Mass displacement. Over 2 million civilians were now internally displaced. In the northeastern province of Sahel, huge camps of tents sprang up around Dori. Mothers, toddlers, and elders huddled under tarps in the blazing sun. Medecins Sans Frontières reported outbreaks of cholera and measles. Ibrahim Traoré pledged more aid, but neighboring Ghana and Ivory Coast could only take so many refugees. 3. Basic services collapsing. Schools shut down. Clinics lacked medicine. Electricity in bordering towns like Kaya flickered out. Public employees, teachers, nurses, civil servants went months without pay because the budget prioritized military expenditures. When teachers protested, some were arrested under suspicion of colluding with subversive elements. 4. Human rights accusations. As rapid intervention battalions roamed villages looking for jihadist cells, civilians began complaining of harassment. Reports emerged of extrajudicial killings in places like Gorgaji, Local journalists who tried to investigate these allegations found their offices ransacked. The national radio station Radio Salama was fined and taken off the air for spreading false information. 5. Critics within. Even some soldiers who had supported Ibrahim Traoré's coup started whispering that he might become the very thing he fought against. International rights groups like Human Rights Watch issued statements demanding accountability. Opponents outside the capital accused him of extending military rule indefinitely, despite promises of elections. But Ibrahim Traoré's supporters argued, "This is war. This is survival. No time for talk." In an interview with Jeune Afrique in December 2022, he said, "I'm not here to play politics. I am here to save my country. If that means making hard choices, so be it." That phrase, hard choices, would haunt him both at home and abroad. Because with every village retaken, a new accusation followed. With every ally recruited, a new fear spread that Burkina Faso is becoming a militarized state. Yet in Ouagadougou markets, many still bought t-shirts and stickers of a red beret soldier, believing that, despite the scars, Ibrahim Traoré was the best chance to keep jihadists out. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens felt the squeeze of spiking food prices, rising unemployment, and the constant hum of military convoys. By early 2023, the world watched with a mixture of hope and caution. Could Ibrahim Traoré deliver on his promise of Burkina Faso for Burkina without losing the very freedoms he swore to protect? Breaking chains, the France-Russia pivot. One of Ibrahim Traoré's boldest and most controversial moves came in December 2022 when he publicly declared that French troops must leave Burkina Faso. France had maintained a military presence, Operation Barkhane, since 2014, claiming it helped combat jihadists. French bases dotted Gao, Timbuktu, and Ouagadougou. But many Burkinabés saw it differently. Foreign boots on their soil, French helicopters patrolling the skies, all while extremism spread south. On December 26, 2022, as a gesture of defiance, Ibrahim Traoré ordered all French soldiers and equipment to withdraw within 3 weeks. Across the capital, large murals appeared, a scoped crosshair over a French flag, accompanied by the slogan "Fin de l'Anti-Colonial." Pro-Traoré protesters burned French flags outside the French ambassador's residence. Simultaneously, he reached out to Moscow. By January 2023, reports emerged that the Wagner Group, a private Russian military contractor, had advisors in Ouagadougou. Videos circulated online showing shadowy Wagner operatives training Burkinabé soldiers in marksmanship, small unit tactics, and heartland defense. By February 2023, Ibrahim Traoré's government signed a formal agreement with Moscow. Russian instructors would supply non-lethal logistic support, while Russian miners would help develop Burkina Faso's gold and manganese fields. The move angered Paris. French aid was cut by 60%, but Ibrahim Traoré's message remained unchanged. We break our chains. We will no longer accept foreign dictate. He also formed the Alliance of Sahel States, a military pact with Mali and Niger, both under military juntas who had similarly expelled French forces. The alliance aimed to pool resources against jihadists, share intelligence, and coordinate border security. Critics warned that the Wagner Group's track record in Central African Republic and Mali had led to accusations of human rights abuses. Western embassies cautioned citizens to leave Burkina Faso. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, threatened sanctions if elections were not held by mid-2024. Yet, in Ibrahim Traoré's mind, breaking with France was more than geopolitics. It was a statement of Pan-African pride. He often quoted Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's iconic father of the revolution, who in 1983 said, "He who feeds you, controls you." Almost 4 decades later, Ibrahim Traoré insisted, no more feeding from the old colonial table. And with each handshake he gave to a Russian advisor, he seemed to signal a new era, one where Burkina Faso might chart its own path, even if that path ran rough and lonely. The man, the image, the future. Ibrahim Traoré is more than a president. He is a symbol. On social media, he is called the Thomas Sankara of our generation, referring to the revolutionary leader who ruled Burkina Faso from 1983 until his assassination in 1987. Like Sankara, Ibrahim Traoré appears in military uniforms, no luxury cars, no suits. He walks barefoot in tiny villages, eats at communal tables with soldiers, and addresses villagers directly. No teleprompters, no polished speeches. Instagram feeds show him smiling with school children in Orodora, inspecting rice paddies in Bobo Dalasso, or hugging an elderly farmer in Kaya. His TikTok account, registered as @Captain Traoré, has over 400,000 followers by mid-2023. Videos of him stroking a white goat while explaining agricultural reforms went viral. But behind the image of humble military hipster lies a more complex reality. Behind the scenes, aides whisper that Ibrahim Traoré's personal security detail now includes Russian trainers. They say Ibrahim Traoré has grown more guarded, fewer late-night strolls, more closed-door meetings. Journalists who once could approach him on the street now wait outside the palace gates for hours. So, is this genuine humility or a carefully crafted persona? His supporters argue that by dressing like a soldier and speaking plainly, he taps into the frustration of the youth. Over 65% of Burkina Faso's population is under 30. These young people have never known real security. They see in him a chance to break the endless cycle of poverty, illiteracy, and fear. His critics say it's a populist shield to hide autocratic impulses. They point to the National Television and Radio Commission, which finds stations for wrongful reporting, and to the arrests of activists who tried to organize protests against rising bread prices in April 2023. Sociologists in Ouagadougou note that his style evokes Sankara's 1983 parliament speech, where Sankara said, "Our revolution is neither tribal nor regional. It is for all Burkina." Traore echoes that line in rallies, but adds, "Our enemy is not an ethnicity or tribe. It is the jihadist ideology and the foreign puppets who let it grow." But as he moves forward, questions multiply. Will the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts in Kaya still learn civics if he delays elections? Or will his rapid intervention battalions become a standing army loyal first to him, rather than the constitution? Or what happens if the Wagner group's presence sparks an even deeper conflict with Western governments? For now, he seems to feed on the hope of a new generation. In Ouagadougou's cafes, hipster musicians compose rap songs praising Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the man with the big heart. Graffiti artists spray murals of a stylized soldier raising his fist under the map of Africa. Internationally, his name appears more frequently. In Addis Ababa, African Union officials debate whether to bar Burkina Faso from certain programs. In Brussels, EU diplomats scrawl notes on how to pressure Captain Ibrahim to hold elections, sanctions, cut aid, freeze bank accounts. Meanwhile, neighboring Mali, Niger, and Chad sign new security pacts, hoping to create a united belt against extremist spillover. His ultimate choice looms: hold elections and risk losing power, or stay in charge, hoping he can achieve stability before handing over the reins. That decision will shape not only Burkina Faso's future, but also whether West Africa's anti-imperialist dream lives or dies. Africa's youngest revolutionary, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, is not perfect. He is not a prophet. He is a man who stood up when others remained silent, when armies fell back, when politicians turned a blind eye, when villages burned in silence. In the face of jihadists, foreign powers, and internal division, he said, "We will not kneel." Whether history remembers him as a hero, a dictator, or something in between, only time will tell. But for now, he has ignited a flame in the hearts of millions, a flame that says, Africa can rise, on its own terms, if he can deliver on his promise. If 100 rapid intervention fighters become the shield that protects remote communities, if schools reopen, if borders seal and trade resumes, then Captain Ibrahim Traoré's name will be etched in history alongside Sankara, Nkrumah, and Naire. If he fails, if the jihadists retake lost ground, if civil liberties vanish, if war drags on, then he will become another cautionary tale of power gone wrong. But for this moment, as the sun sets over the red soils of Ouagadougou, we watch, we wait, and we wonder, Can a single captain, armed with nothing but conviction, transform a nation on the brink? This moment belongs to Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and to all of us who dare to believe in a new Africa. Ibrahim Traoré is not just a man in uniform. He's a powerful symbol of a rising Africa determined to break free from neocolonial chains and reclaim its future. From a humble village of Bondaki to the heart of Burkina Faso's leadership, his story is one of courage, conviction, and bold action. Whether seen as a hero or a controversial figure, one thing is clear: Ibrahim Traoré has shaken the old order and sparked a conversation that echoes across the continent. What do you think about Captain Ibrahim Traoré? Or is he Africa's next great revolutionary? Or just another soldier in a cycle of power? Do you believe Africa can break free from foreign influence and write its own destiny? We want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk, respectfully and boldly. If you found this story as powerful and eye-opening as we did, be sure to like, comment, and share this video with everyone who believes in Africa's right to define its own destiny. Let us know in the comments. Do you believe Ibrahim Traoré is a revolutionary Africa has been waiting for, or just another soldier in a long history of unrest? And don't forget to subscribe to Real African History for more compelling stories from the past and present that they don't want you to hear. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and remember, no doubt Africa has been a victim of Western neocolonialism, but the rise of a new sun in the person of Ibrahim Traoré, indeed Africa is rising. Thank you for watching Real African History.